In a quiet hospital wing late one stormy night, Nurse Emma was doing her rounds. She passed by room 237, known to the staff as the room where Mr. Johnson had passed away the previous week. As she walked past, she heard faint whispers coming from inside. Curious and a bit unnerved, she cautiously pushed the door open. Inside, the room was empty except for the dim glow of a bedside lamp. The whispers seemed to grow louder, yet no one was there. Just as she was about to leave, the lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Suddenly, a chilling voice called out her name from the corner of the room. Emma froze, her heart racing. She turned slowly, only to see a figure shrouded in darkness, staring back at her with empty eyes. With a gasp, she fled the room, but the whispers followed her down the hallway, echoing in her mind long after she had left that haunted place. Legend has it, to this day, nurses avoid room 237 after dark, afraid of encountering the restless spirit of Mr. Johnson. Dr. Michael Wells had always prided himself on his rationality. As a seasoned surgeon at St. Mary's Hospital, he had seen his fair share of life and death situations, but nothing prepared him for the events that unfolded one fateful night. It began with a routine surgery on a young patient named Sarah, who needed her appendix removed. The operation went smoothly, and Sarah was moved to the recovery room without complications. However, as night descended and the hospital grew quiet, strange occurrences began to unsettle the staff. Nurse Ramirez, known for her no-nonsense demeanor, was the first to notice something amiss. She had just finished checking on Sarah when she heard faint, childlike laughter echoing down the empty corridors. Brushing it off as exhaustion, she continued her rounds, but the laughter persisted, always just out of reach. Meanwhile, Dr. Wells was reviewing patient files in his office when he heard a frantic knock on the door. It was Nurse Ramirez, her face pale with fear. She whispered hurriedly about shadows moving in the corners, and whispered voices that seemed to come from nowhere. Dr. Wells, skeptical but concerned, decided to investigate. Together, they ventured into the quiet halls, where the air seemed unnaturally cold. As they approached Sarah's room, they both froze. The door was slightly ajar, and a soft glow emanated from within. With trepidation, they pushed the door open. Inside, Sarah lay still in her bed, seemingly asleep. But what caught their attention was a shadowy figure standing by the window, its form shifting and flickering like smoke. Dr. Wells blinked, thinking it was a trick of the light, but Nurse Ramirez gasped in horror. The figure turned slowly, its face obscured by darkness. Dr. Wells felt a chill run down his spine as he recognized the features of Mr. Thompson, a patient who had passed away in the same room just a month ago. His mind reeled with disbelief. How could this be happening? Before they could react, Sarah stirred in her sleep, mumbling incoherently. The shadowy figure vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. Dr. Wells and Nurse Ramirez exchanged a bewildered glance, unsure of what they had just witnessed. From that night on, whispers of strange occurrences spread among the hospital staff. Lights flickered inexplicably, equipment malfunctioned without cause, and some patients reported seeing shadowy figures at their bedside. Dr. Wells tried to rationalize the events, attributing them to stress or fatigue, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something otherworldly had visited St. Mary's Hospital that night. Years later, Dr. Wells still avoids discussing that night. Sarah recovered fully and left the hospital without incident, but the memory of the shadowy figure lingers, a haunting reminder that some mysteries defy explanation. Dr. Emily Collins was renowned for her calm demeanor and precise surgical skills. She had spent years working at Mercy Hospital, where she earned the trust of both patients and colleagues alike. But one winter's night, everything she believed in would be challenged. It was a particularly bitter evening when a young man named Peter was rushed into the emergency room. He had been in a car accident, his body battered and broken. Dr. Collins took charge of his case, determined to save his life. The surgery was grueling, lasting well into the early hours of the morning, but Peter survived against all odds. As the days passed, Peter's condition stabilized, and he was moved to a private room for recovery. However, strange occurrences soon began to unfold on the hospital's 5th floor, where Peter's room was located. Nurses reported hearing footsteps in empty corridors, and patients claimed to see fleeting shadows at night. Dr. Collins, ever the skeptic, dismissed these stories as the product of stress and fatigue. That is, until she started noticing peculiar changes in Peter. He became withdrawn, speaking in hushed tones to someone unseen. When questioned, he would simply smile cryptically and refuse to elaborate. One night, Dr. Collins was on rounds when she heard faint whispers coming from Peter's room. Curiosity getting the better of her, she quietly approached and peeked inside. To her astonishment, Peter was sitting upright in bed, conversing with an apparition that hovered near the window. The figure was translucent, its features blurred yet somehow familiar. Dr. Collins felt a chill run down her spine as she realized it bore a striking resemblance to Peter's deceased brother, Daniel, who had tragically died in the same hospital years ago. She watched in disbelief as Peter and the apparition exchanged words in a language she couldn't comprehend. The air in the room grew colder, and Dr. Collins felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over her. Without warning, the apparition turned to her, its eyes piercing through her soul with an intensity that froze her in place. In that moment, Dr. Collins knew she was witnessing something beyond her understanding. She backed away slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. As she retreated down the hallway, the whispers followed her, echoing in her mind long after she had left Peter's room. From that night on, Dr. Collins struggled to make sense of what she had witnessed. She sought answers in medical journals and consulted with colleagues, but none could offer a satisfactory explanation. Peter recovered and was discharged from Mercy Hospital, but the memory of that chilling encounter haunted Dr. Collins for years to come. To this day, she remains unsure whether it was a trick of the mind or a glimpse into a realm beyond our own. But one thing is certain: Mercy Hospital holds secrets that defy rational explanation, and Dr. Collins is forever changed by the inexplicable horror she encountered that night.